All right, excellent, excellent. Well, thanks for having me out tonight. We talked about this about a year ago. Liz asked me to come out and talk about portrait photography. I'm Michael Hayward, by the way. Um, and my first thought was, you got the wrong guy. What? You're asking me. Um, and it really created a good opportunity over the last year to think about what worked for me, in terms of capturing portraits, what might work for you. And as we talked about it more, Liz and I really, hit upon the idea of one of the things that we hear most often is somebody says, hey, I like to take pictures. I take pictures of birds. I take pictures of flowers. But because I'm the person in my family with a camera, I'm always asked to take pictures of people. And I don't like to do that. How do I do that? Right? So what we wanted to do tonight was take a couple of the ideas that I've learned, not necessarily things that are written in a textbook or whatnot, but I want to start there. Oldest picture in the deck, but that's from 2002 on film, a picture of my daughter. And I put it up there because it was one of the first portraits that I took where I said, maybe I'm onto something here. I really liked it. And it, kind of led to me to thinking about, well, what do I like and, what don't I like? So there's 10 tips. First tip I'd give you there, lighting's really everything. I'd say over the years, a number of people will say to me, hey, I got a new camera for Christmas. The pictures are not coming out the way that I'd like, right? Well, what's going on? Well, they're almost invariably shooting indoors, right? With the kit lens, with a small aperture, without the benefit of flash. I'd say in terms of pictures, and the pictures will change, I think, as we go through, but I have traditionally been really big on trying to find really soft light that wraps around the subjects, almost like creating a softbox outside, for people. So the first thing I'd say is go outside, right? But the second thing I'd say, don't do it at noon, right? When you talk to people, hey, when are we going to do this? Oftentimes it's, hey, let's go at noon, let's go at 10 o'clock, let's go at 2 o'clock. You know this, right? But the lighting is terrible. Your models are going to get hot, they're going to get sweaty, they're going to get irritable, and the light creates a lot of shadows in places you don't want them. Like light shining down on top of your nose is going to create a shadow under your nose, like a mustache, for example. So what I like to do is get outside, right? But find places where there's shade, right? And that's, if you don't recognize that, in St. Augustine, the Lightner Museum courtyard. And there are spots there where you can catch some shade from some of the buildings and some you can't. Sometimes you can catch reflections like coming off on the water a little bit here, as well. Or look for walls. Sometimes we'll have light that's actually shining on them. And I'll talk about this a little bit as we go. But I think, number one, get better pictures, better portraits, find better light. And some of that's you walking around and looking at it, right? And putting yourself where that model is and saying, what's the light like? If you're putting yourself in their position and you're blinking against the sun, it's probably not the best place, for it. I like shooting at a bank drive-through. Right? And that's where this was taken. There's a little bit of red back there. That's from a Wells Fargo sign. But that's Becky. Becky wanted a headshot. She's a Florida girl. This was actually her corporate headshot. She got a promotion. But we wanted it open and light and airy. Have you all ever heard the term garage door lighting? Yeah, so, visually something that you might remember and think about, if you think about your garage, right? You could put up your garage door ever so slightly, get a little light in there, right? You could open it up all the way, you've got a little more light in that garage, or a lot more light. Depending on where you put that person in the garage, how much light is going to be shining on them and what time of day, right? In the front of the garage, maybe you're getting direct sunlight, really getting them lit up. But at the end of the day, you could open it up and move that person forward and back and find the right lighting like that. And that's kind of what happened here. We moved her kind of towards the front of the drive-through, towards the back of the drive-through. We had lots of shade, but this was actually shot at noon, I think. But light bouncing around everywhere, you just had to find it. So open shade, same concept. So I'd say here with this dance troupe, we had no choice but to do it at 12. That was at Washington Oaks State Park. Didn't really want to do it at 12. You can see kind of in the back there how washed out that is. But I knew if we were going to get a shot, we really needed to find some shade. So we got them in there, kind of worked with it a little bit, got them in place, and actually put a little bit of fill flash on the front to light them up. We actually moved out of that, and I'd say this was easily the best picture of the day, because we controlled the lighting on it. So something I try to remember, you've heard of the golden hour, right? So around sunset, around sunrise, just about the time the sun goes down, it always seems like the light really gets good, and I like it that time of day for that yellow color. You only get that later in the day here in Florida, but I really like it. And in this instance, the light was almost gone, so you needed a little bit. That's my dog Blue, on his face, so we needed a little bit of fill flash to light up his eyes. So that's just on camera flash. Okay. Tip number 2, so we're going to do these family portraits. Where are we going to go? I'd say find your happy place, right? And think about a few locations that are meaningful to you or maybe to the folks that you're shooting. And on there, I'd say rotate 3 or 4 different locations throughout it, right? Sometimes it's just not working, but you go to the next spot, and just the movement, it relaxes people and you get a little further in. What I wanted to show you here, this is at the lighthouse in St. Augustine. If you're familiar with that area, there's a boat ramp. So I'm laying on the ground here in the rain, with these dogs.
What?
That's where that car,
That's
that truck was going to be. It has to do with
180-degree shift,
computers.
right? So it's directly behind me.
Yeah, it has something to do with his reception or something.
Yeah, that one actually, FC3, by the way, that one would have been FC3 as it happens.
What the fuck?
So
All he did is mark the highest
now we're
point of his
looking at the
ceiling.
river, and we go about 20 feet down the river, and we've got that beach, right? And, a couple of things I'd point out there, angle, right? So that one, I've got the camera lifted up a little bit higher in this one. The other ones I was down on the ground. I did that because I didn't want to get the cars and people in the background, right? So I was trying to concentrate more on the animals. Okay, everybody loves the beach. Where are we gonna go, right? Have you all shot pictures on the beach before, portraits? Right. So number one problem I hear at our club, a fella just moved from Michigan. He said, how do I get the lenses not to fog up? Right. So my answer would be put that in your car overnight, put it in your garage overnight. Don't take it out of your cold closet and go out on the beach and expect to not get condensation, right? But you get hair problems, right? You can kind of see this in the picture. So a family photo we did of my own family. I thought if we ever do a gospel album, this is it, right? This is a little over the top, I thought. But you got to look at what's happening with the wind, and you end up having to face people into the wind, right? You get blown out skies. Now. So we're not seeing a picture? Right. Okay. Okay. Let's see. So we got Zoom died completely? Okay. I think I just have to reshare maybe. You did it. There we go. You're awesome. All right, how's that? Okay. Other user tip I'd share there. Let me see if I can get rid of some of this other stuff though. Nope.
Just go to the window where the pictures are and just click on that one line that's where the black.
Yeah, it's not going on. Oh, the black line. More. Can you see the cursor? No, the cursor isn't lining up. So.
Where is the cursor?
Escape me.
Because I like the touch screen. I'm trying to get to that. Yeah. No cursor. Stop sharing.
Well, it only lets us go in there, as you see.
And say, do stop, stop sharing for a minute.
I can't get to it.
Yeah, we can't even get to it.
Yeah, try stop sharing and then.
That's what we're trying to, but we can't find the
Like
cursor.
arrows?
Hold on.
No.
We're there.
Nope.
Yeah, the cursor's different. You don't have a mouse, do you?
Is this exit? All right. let's
There you
see.
go.
Okay, here.
Yeah, click that.
Okay, and
That'll
then
get it
here,
out of the
how do
way.
we get this?
Now go back to your, should be able, go to your PowerPoint.
Okay, but we still have this over the top. And we'll get rid of this.
Yeah, right there.
Ah, there
Right
we
there.
go. Excellent.
Okay, and then you can.
All
there you
right,
go.
we good? All right. Thank you. Okay, also on the beach. So my wife is 5'3", my daughter is 5'8", my son is 5'11", I'm 6'1". My wife always complains about being the short person in the photo, but if you level people out on the beach on a hillside, it works, right? Because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right? All right. So number 3, I'd say be the music. You could say be the director, but I think be the music's a little softer. I'd say own it. The folks typically that you're working with, they want their best pictures, but they also want your advice and guidance. I put this picture up because Silas Newborn, Eden wanted some pictures in particular, right? So she sent me some things to look at and said, I kind of want a picture like this. I'd say that's really a cell phone shot, right? It's what you're typically going to see with an iPhone, that angle of view, also kind of shooting down like that. So I came prepared with the 35 millimeter and also thinking it's a newborn, I can't really use any flash, so I wanted something wide open like the 1.4 aperture, on that. Not necessarily my favorite picture, but made her happy, right? It's what she wanted. So, along with that, I wanted to make sure I got the kind of picture that I felt, I knew how to get, so here, we went outside and you can kind of see a couple of things there. See how it's darker at the bottom and kind of lighter up there. I just walked around their house to try to find the best lighting outside, that was blocked by the house at that time of day. And they said, no, we don't want to do it out there because we got the play set and the fence and the neighbor's house. I said, well, we're going to blur that out, right? So that was a 1.8 lens, 135, and I knew that all that stuff would disappear. So how many people like the one on the left? All right, and the one on the right? Yeah. And I think there's a place for both, but again, just planning with it. The other thing I'd say is working with the people. I have a tendency to kind of mumble, okay, move over there, right? It doesn't work, right? Put down the camera a little bit, especially with mirrorless, because you can hold it like that and actually interact with the person. But again, I'd say, give them direction, but be wary of that. Family groupings, don't forget grandma. The lady in the middle there, I had worked with this family before and I knew that she was very camera shy, but she loves her family, so I felt like I needed to make an extra effort when we were taking this picture to go get her, In terms of lighting there, that's lit with a flash and a modifier, but there's also a little bit of an overhang there, give them a little bit of shade. Ham it up. These folks, I've worked with a couple of pirate crews a little bit. This is Tracy and her husband, Brian. I just love this. See how she's curling her toes up, really getting into it, right? And so I didn't tell them to do any of that stuff, but on the other hand, I did encourage them. You guys are looking great, man, that's awesome. He had his sunglasses on. Hey, Brian, can you take off your sunglasses? Okay, no problem. And at one point he had his hat on. It was just totally shading her face, So I'd say, pay attention to the details and coach him a little bit. But obviously they were in their own moment, and that's a picture they really love, And I just love it. Like he's standing up on his toes, and we got a little bit of wind pushing her scarf around, getting a little dynamics in it. And I'd say, once you're at that point, hey, let's try something different, right? And I'll talk about that a little bit more. Basic, posing directions. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we were doing something for the St. Augustine Camera Club. We needed a model, so I got my daughter, and she was watching these videos, right? And the first thing that she found is, if it bends, bend it, right? So basic model advice to make pictures better. I put that in practice here, right? So Devin here has got his weight off of one of his feet. Picture that with him standing still as a mug shot, right? Versus this picture. This is fun and dynamic, and all he really did was pick up his foot, Second example here, Elise wanted a real estate picture, right? She wants to be approachable, but fun, also know what she's doing. Just a little bit of bend, little older, less athletic person, but definitely better than kind of a static mugshot. And then Talia here, she seems to just bend everything. She's, I don't know how that happens, but, you can see the sweep of the leg coming up there, through her shoulder and her neck and everything like that. Just a really graceful picture, just with some basic, bend to it. Number 4, so if you want to get more detailed with the posing, I can't get that max off, but that's okay. I'd say look on the internet, look at your own photos, find some poses that you feel comfortable with. Here, I was trying to help mom out a little bit, so we've got daughter showing off her abs. So we got the young man to block a little bit, right? And got mom to pick up her leg a little bit. Something I love there, get the shoes off and get their feet in the water. These are folks from Ohio who come here for a week every year. They're really owning it here. Yeah, it's our Florida vacation. We're in the water, right? Pay attention to the details there. So mom, for whatever reason, I guess it's longer hair, but the hair keeps blowing around her face. I've done them, I think, 4 years now. So by now I've learned to pay attention to it, right? Or get somebody else to point it out to me. Again, the wind problem with the beach, but just get somebody to pay attention. Yes, sir. Yeah, so what that is, we had this conversation earlier, I think Nancy said, what do you shoot portraits with? Said mostly a 28-70. So it was a 28-70. I don't remember how I ended up at 38, on it. It's probably moving for more like 35. Yeah, that's cropped. And I think it's probably shot vertically and cropped. So, group pictures. So I'd say avoid the usual suspects lineup, right? So, iconic picture, but, not typically what you want and what people maybe think that you're looking for. They're just going to line up like that. I did a project where I went to some bank branches and trying to catch the teams at the branch level, right? And I knew that I wanted to avoid the usual suspect stuff. So I was moving furniture around. It doesn't normally look like this. And the book was laying around, good group of people. We came up with this family story night concept here. I just think that's a more memorable and engaging picture, especially, in a corporate environment, but yet still professional. I wish I got all of his foot, though. So it's our job to make magic, right? So some of you I think I saw a birding festival t-shirt in here. Some of you been at the birding festival in St. Augustine before. So you may have been in Bobby Lane, does a portrait workshop there. Ivy works for Uncorked Occasions and will sign you in for the birding fest. It was also a model, for that workshop. So that's what we got in the workshop, right? I'd say the first picture's, not bad. It's kind of candle heavy. It's not my picture. It's, off their website. But I think the second one, is one that she really enjoys, and is more useful in terms of, capturing her. The next one here, she also had her boyfriend. This is another year that we did it. And we're like, hey, let's get you in the picture too, right? And you end up with those. You were at one of those, right? Was it that year that we were together? Yeah.
He said he wasn't a model, you went, oh, yes, you are.
He wasn't a model, right? So now he's a model, right? Now I got the picture of my Harlequin romance, if I ever write one. You know, I really like the picture. You know, I think there's some flaws. One thing happens when you build this out, you know, you see all the flaws because you go through it a couple times, but so I've got this picture, right? And so I'm going back for another pirate session, and one of the folks said to me, hey, you know, I never get a good picture. You know, I'd really like to get a good picture of myself and my husband, but we're just not that photogenic, right? Can you help us out, right? So I said, hey, do you want to try this, right? So that's what we got with them, you know, and you know, I'd say part of the fun there is they looked at it as, you know, middle-aged people. I'm showing them this young couple with the Harlequin romance, you know, they're like, they really owned it, you know, and so had a lot of fun with that. We got that good picture. And then here, you know, I've got that pose, right? And they were like, tell us what to do. Okay, well, here, take a look at this. Can you do this? Fun note there, he is probably 18 inches taller than his wife there. So he just basically, you know, got down like this, you know. Problems can be solved, right? But, you know, basically the same pose, right? 3 takes on it. All right, my favorite, right? So if you have a couple, you know, tell them lean in, touch your foreheads, look into each other's eyes, no kissing allowed. And, you know, then you get something like that. And just, you know, just joy and fun. And, you know, they're kind of giggling because, you know, again, sort of older folks that maybe haven't done wedding pictures in a while, right? Which is what you're kind of getting to do, you know. Same thing here. You know, kind of a bittersweet story here. That's William and Pauline. William's a good friend of mine, and Pauline unfortunately passed away, you know, about a year after this picture was taken. But we got an opportunity to catch them at a really joyous time, you know, and it's just that prompt, you know, hey, just put your foreheads together, right? And it doesn't always work, you know, but it works a lot. So posing, one of the things that Nancy and I were talking about doing is doing a workshop with this list. I went to a conference in St. Louis called Shutterfest, and the presentation was 10 poses in 60 seconds. So around Valentine's Day, Nancy? Yeah, so we're going to try to replicate this. But posing, right? Here it talks about small movements, right? So couples face each other, hands around neck and waist, right? Again, we're just kind of float, and it's okay to have that script or checklist on your phone, you know, or in your hand or whatnot, you know. So look at each other, look at the camera. Bride slides the ring hand to bicep. Okay, that's what we got there, except for if we're talking to Max. But so groom touches her jaw, brings her in for a kiss, right? We're going to look at each other, look away. We're going to look at each other and have a bend at the waist, right? That's all 2 minutes, you know, and they really got in the flow of that. It enables you to kind of open things up a little bit. They're having fun with it, right? You know, as you click away. Kind of the opposite, right? Instead of a fast pace, you know, this is a really snail's crawl pace. So another workshop that I was involved in, but newborn nerds. So they specialize in baby photography. The instructor, that's her baby and that's her husband. So baby was completely asleep, newborn. She spent a lot of time interlacing those fingers and getting it under the chin of the baby to help the baby prop himself, I think, together, you know, while he's asleep. So poor dad's kneeling there, and she got him going like this, waiting for the baby, you know, and it was a good 10 minutes, you know, wrapping that baby up and getting ready. But, you know, here it's just really taking it slow, you know, and keeping that baby asleep. And I think dad's kind of asleep there too, maybe. So number 5, so active, right? Talk about action photos a little bit. Do you remember her name?
Yes. Look.
Brooke. Okay. So this is another thing that Nancy put together, the Michael Joseph workshop. So Brooke's a dancer, right? So, I think it's a pretty good picture. I think that you looking at her, I was like, she's a dancer. Why is she not dancing, right? She's in her tutu and everything. So I'm like, let's get you dancing. Um, what can you do, right? So I asked her to do a little jump or do a dance or whatever she did, and then I said, "Oh shoot, I missed it. Can you do that again?" Right? "Oh, I missed it again. Can you slow it down a little bit more?" "Okay, I missed it again. Can you really slow it down?" And that's what we ended up with. And I think there's a place for both pictures, but I hate it when you have something like that where there's a dancer you don't get that. So we got the portrait, we got the dancing, and I'd say also think about some detail shots, right? Because one of the things I noticed was her shoes were pretty beat up, and I was talking to her about that a little bit, and she said, "Yeah, it's time for new shoes." But she was proud of the fact she wore them out, in practice. So I wanted to, get that as well. So a little blur. So on action shots, this is one where I'd say it works. If you look at the hoofs, they're a little bit blurry. The rope's a little bit blurry, but it's sharp enough. And the front of the horse, is a little blurry, but it's sharp enough in the right spots, right? So in the rider's face. This was actually at night, as you can tell, but it was raining too, which is what all those splotchy things in the sky are. Slow motion kind of rain. Why is it black and white? Because the arena lights were crazy. It was blue and purple and green and everything in between. And I'll cover that a little bit later too. So a little better light there, right? And I'd say, with action, if you can set your camera to maintain a continuous focus, right, get on the eyes. This is one, I guess I'd point out the f-stop there at 2.8. I mean, it's really sharp for 2.8 if you have everything in the same focal plane. But again, like this little tiny bit of blur on the hoof, but fast enough speed to catch the dirt, piling up. You get the look on her face, you get the look on the horse's face. Anticipate, so more action stuff, but I have worked, I think, 4 years on the Pink Up the Pace 5K in St. Augustine. Taking pictures of participants. And I did a lot of cross country when my kids were in school. So I've kind of done a lot of this, so I was trying to get something different. And I always wanted to get in front of them as they're coming at me, but I was afraid I was going to get run over, So what I ended up doing, I got a fisheye lens, 15 millimeter. And here, I stood right in front of the starting line, and it's pretty easy because when it's going to start, right? You find your spot, and just waited for the gun to go off, right? And then, kind of do this, right? So that one, that's an FC3 ribbon winner as well, but I was happy with it, just a little bit of a different kind of shot instead of the normal. All of this stuff, but action especially, I say take the high percentage shot first, right? So that one's relatively easy, although it was a dark environment, right? But, on camera flash, get it in the can, so to speak, you got a picture, and then, open up for other things, right? So that one was harder. So that's a slow shutter speed with a flashlight, so you've got the flashlight, you're kind of doing this, with the guy. It's a real high failure rate, but it's fun when it works, right? So I'd say, take the high percentage shot, then get creative. In the daylight, panning at a slow shutter speed works too. A couple of weeks ago in the Poconos, I was kind of bored with it, so I was maybe I was thinking of Anita, I don't know, with in-camera motion, but yeah, but put 1/30th there, and I was just trying to keep up with with the horses. The reason it's 1/18th is that's what it took to get the shutter speed that low, in the broad daylight. kind of the opposite, right? So slowing down the action. So the bull rider here, no action, right? But that's literally the moments before he's getting on the bull, so he's thinking about it, saying his prayers, getting ready to go. Um, tends to be pretty, maybe even more impactful than a picture on the bull. I think this is the last sports one, but the in-between moments, so what I liked about this, I mean, there's a story there, right? A coach telling the players what to do, maybe a little exasperated, they're all paying attention. A little bit of a different shot perhaps than spiking the ball. Why is it black and white? Because gym lighting is terrible. Number 6, I'd say collaborate with the models, right? Show them the back of the camera. They get engaged with it. Sometimes they'll even say, "Oh, I don't like the way I like, right? The way I look, and let's do something about that." But more often than not, they're like, "Oh, wow, that's cool," And you keep showing them, pay attention, and improvise. This is just a little shot where, I don't know who said it, but somebody was like, "Can you just spin around?" And maybe a little blurry, but a fun shot. A little better than some of the posed ones that we had. Same thing there. I'd say, we were photographing the ladies in the family, and the guys were just kind of waiting, and they were kind of looking. They looked like that, right? They were just, granddad's leaning on grandson. And by the time I noticed it, they stopped doing it. And I was like, "Can you do that again?" And Isaac, the grandson, is like, "No, we're gonna look stupid." I'm like, no, you look good, trust me, right? So, good moment. Something else I thought about there, black and white, we talked about a little bit, it can fix some of your problems. Plus it's artsy, right? So, but that one, how many people like the black and white versus the color, right? Yeah, yeah. Color, anybody like color better? Yeah. I think mom might have liked the color better because she's got a really nice garden, a lot of colors. But I feel like the black and white was really more about the two guys. So have fun with it. So doing a family again, maybe avoiding the usual suspects pose, with that. So went out to the beach naturally, do these pictures. So Ali and Naveed in the middle, and Raj is the younger brother. He's a clown, right? So he just started doing this, on his own. And I'm like, can we get everybody to do this, right? And then Grandma and Grandpa owning it, on the other side, And I just think again a different sort of family picture, than the usual.
So where did you go?
Where did I focus? That's right on Alley in the middle. Where did I focus? Yeah, on Alley. And so I talk about this a little bit later, but just for me, if I was taking portraits, I usually set the camera to f6 before I arrive. If I've got several people like this, I usually go in f8 right away. I can always tweak it a little bit in Photoshop or Topaz, but just kind of my rule of thumb would be, 2 people. I'm starting at f6, kind of the same thing I was saying about getting the shot and then experimenting a little bit. Usually I want to get some at f6, and I feel like I'm going to get that. Once we add a third person, I'm like f8. I don't usually go a whole lot further than that. Sometimes, but I think there's a few. But yeah, focused on Alley there in the middle. And you can kind of see on the other 2 sides, they're dropping off a little bit, but I think that's okay, for this one. But you don't have to smile, right? Have fun with it. But, here's one where, I think, beautiful young lady looks better when she doesn't smile. Really opens up her eyes. Same thing kind of here. She has a tremendous smile, but she tends to, kind of squint, when she does that. And then here, kind of a moody picture, right? Smile probably wouldn't work there. So. If you can find the moment where they forget you're taking the picture, oops. We lost some stuff. How did that happen? Well, we might come back to those or we might not. Um, Kids and pets. So this was the Rick and Rick workshop that we did. And that got a little out of hand in a small room, and so forth. So we had this family, not a lot going on with them with the studio lights. So I just had a flash and I was bouncing that off the ceiling. And so another one with kids, I was laying down on the ground, in front of them. I'd say that, the secret for this picture, right, is him looking at you, right, and having that expression. And you only get that if he's looking at his mom, or his dad. So I kept telling mom, come on over, right? And mom was standing basically right on top of me, and the kid was looking, at him. Because otherwise, he would have been looking like this, right, the whole time, because that's what happens. So, what I think works there, you got, the body language and the posture and kind of that foot, coming forward. A little kid like that, I can't really tell him to do that. I can just try to catch it and try to get mom in there. Same thing with those dogs that we had up earlier, kept looking at mom, and I was like, mom, come in here, right? And sometimes I'll have mom and I'll lean right over mom's shoulder, try to get that shot. Other people have different ways of doing it, maybe engaging the kids, but I figure mom, And that one, black and white, why is it black and white? Because that carpet was god awful. It's like 10 different colors. Just didn't work. All right, number 7. All right, so I'd say call your shot. We've talked about this a little bit, but think beforehand. Does it make sense for a portrait or a landscape? Like that question about the focal length on the lens, right? I kind of knew going in. I got 4 people on the beach. That's probably going to be a vertical portrait shot, versus some of the bigger ones. I put up there, the aperture on those shots. The reason I did that is I tend to shoot aperture priority or manual. I always just try to get, about 1/250th if I can on the shutter, which will be enough to usually cover the action. And we talked about this a little bit, but, if you have a lens that goes to 1.4, use it and you'll get some really interesting shots. But I usually wouldn't start there, because it's just too easy to miss. You can miss the focus, you can get the wrong blur in the wrong place. So I try to get the ones done that I can, and then move it up a little bit. Image stabilization, I find, it doesn't really help you with portraits, for the most part, because people are moving. Example there, I'd say, to the degree that works, what makes it work, right? It's the eye contact with the baby, right? You got to be at that eye level for that to work. If I was leaning over, it's a different picture. I would even say you could probably get even a little bit lower on that, right, and make it work. So unusual perspective, right? So this is my son. We were walking, and I kind of saw this field with the dandelions. He's known for laying in the grass, kind of lolling about, like, hey, get down there, right? And so I was actually standing over him. I photoshopped out my shoes, which one either side of him. So leaning down like this. And at first, he was like this kind of dead looking, and I'm like, no, man, come on, you got to do a crunch, right? And so, he's starting to flex his abs a little bit and kind of making him laugh, and this is what you get, right? So again, just a different perspective. So lens choice, right? So you can go for chaos or maybe not. Goodness gracious. These were here a minute ago. So why don't we have these? Okay. That's not going to work. Oh, they're all gone. Oh, let me see this. let's try this. Out of here. Close that. We'll try this. Okay. All right. Maybe this will work. Do we see that on Zoom? No? Okay.
You gotta share screen.
Okay. Zoom. Share screen. Okay. Excellent. Okay. All right. That's what I was trying to show you earlier. So in a way, that's the basically put your foreheads together shot, right? But they forgot we're there, we're taking pictures, you're getting that moment, right? I'd make the argument that's basically the same photo, right? Instead of we changed out the horse. Right? And so they're just looking at each other, right? Eye contact, making it happen. One little tip there is, you ever see those shots? There's always somebody doing this with the veil. Okay, so we talked about this little guy. We talked about this. Okay. So that's the chaos version, right? So that's Elton, in and out of the pool, in and out of the pool, in and out of the pool, right? I love my ball. Again, that's a fisheye lens. I wanted to get I went to f11. I actually could have gone a lot higher on that, but I wanted to get that lens flare. If you go to a smaller and smaller aperture, you get that lens flare. I wanted to catch the water. He has an enormous head. I wanted to catch that enormous head, right? And that's another one I think I cloned out my feet because he's right there in front of me on this shot. So that's all lens choice, right? That's the 15 millimeter fisheye. Or for Elton, right, on his doggy dating site at Tinder, that's him, right? So same dog, right? Next day, that's a 200 millimeter lens, so just the difference in what's available in terms of the equipment. Number 8, so the background, right? The only part of the background that matters, is what's going to be in the photo, right? If you kind of, looking at this here, is this, oh, there we go. If there's a gorilla there, it doesn't matter. If there's a, stack of garbage there, it doesn't matter, right? It's just that little part of the frame, that you're looking at. I mention this because, again, it's common for somebody you're taking their picture to say, hey, can we do it over here, right? Can we do it over there? Like Eden, I mentioned, she loves the wreath on her front door. It looks god awful in a picture, right? But okay, great. We'll take your wreath picture, and can I get you over here? Just let's try it, and ultimately, get it in the right spot. Your choice of aperture to emphasize or de-emphasize the background, and then getting people away from the background. I'd say people invariably want to get right on the background. Get them a few feet away, ideally 3-4 feet away, give them some distance. That'll help with shadows if there are any, but also, de-emphasize it. But sometimes it matters, right? So is there any question where that picture was taken? Right, it's, the background matters, the environmental aspect of it. It took me like 10 years to get a decent hot dog guy picture. They don't like you taking their picture, but I don't know why I wanted a hot dog guy picture, but finally got it. I was really happy with it. So the background matters, right? What does she do for a living? Librarian, right? Background matters. That was for, she had gotten a promotion. You know, we want to do something a little different. Rick Farrow was talking about being here tonight, but one thing I learned from him, somewhat on display there, but you know, he talks about with a portrait, the 1/4 inch rule. You ever hear that? Right? The idea being instead of a head-on shot, you know, rotate somebody's head until you've got about a 1/4 inch of skin showing between the eye and the outside. Not that it's just all eye, but leaves just a little bit there. And if you look at your picture of George Washington on your dollar bills, you'll see he's doing the same thing, right? But just a little way to turn somebody, you know, get them at their best. Yeah. I wish I could have told you I knew that at the time, but you know, so you know, it works, right? And then this one, I'd say, you know, if you put your thumb up over the guy in the picture, you know, it doesn't work. It's not much of a picture, you know, there. So again, you know, sometimes it matters, but a lot of times with the portraits, it's not going to matter. It's not about the landscape, right? Unless it is, which I'd say is here, right? So Valley of Fire in Nevada, my daughter there. I think you kind of need, you know, my daughter in the picture on this one, but on the other hand, it's not really about her. So what if you want to get more of the background, but still having a portrait, right? I love a 50mm lens for that. So just kind of show you, you know, some of the earlier concepts too. So, you know, you guys know the Castillo San Marco, right? So 50mm shot, you get the Castillo, you get the person. I'm 4 or 5 feet in front of her, you know, here. Same thing, 50mm lens, right? And going back to knowing where your happy place is, you know, I've photographed a lot of people sitting in that exact spot now, you know, because I know where it is, and, you know, and I know it works. And then we go here, which is a little further down the bayfront, right? So, you know, less than 5 minutes of walking, 3 different spots, same lens. But again, it works, that 50mm works really good. Some other things I kind of point out there, right? That bended thing, right? So she's got a little bit of bend going on there, right? And I'd also say these 2 shots, whoops, I went too far. So we got a sweater here, got the sweater off, right? Because who wants 3 pictures with the sweater, right? So just vary it a little bit, you know, and come up with something different. And again, 3 different pictures, you know, within 5 minutes of each other, you know, very, very little walking. So 2 more left, right? So light them up. We talked in the beginning, I'd say best thing to do is to find the best light. You know, what if you can't get that light, right? Well, you can create it, right? And that's a progression. Almost everything I showed tonight is all without shadows. It's all evenly lit and so forth. You know, one of the things I'm trying to do these days is also get a little more shadow going on things. So this one, and talk about backgrounds too. So this is my son. He needed a picture for his residency application. So that's $50 of felt from Joann Fabric behind him, you know, hung up in our living room. I've got an umbrella light on one side. You know, I bought like the cheapest umbrella I could get on Amazon, and nothing on the other side. So you get a little bit of that shadow, you know, makes it a little bit more interesting, I think, in a portrait. But generally, you know, the light, you know, I didn't bring a flash, but about the worst thing you could do is straight on flash somebody. You know, it's going to look like that mugshot, but you just turn it up, you know, just like the kid that I showed you within the mom picture. You can bounce it, right? Even in a place like this would bounce pretty good. Or maybe even you put that behind you, like this surface, right? So you turn the flash backwards and it'll actually come out in a nice spread for that person, you know, diffuse it. That was a shoot through. Yeah, the question was that a shoot through or reflective umbrella? So that was a shoot through umbrella. You know, I'd say the biggest thing that you could do for yourself, in my opinion, is get outdoors and find good light, right? Number 2 would be get a good strobe with a softbox, and it makes everything really easy. Once Nancy's nodding, but once you get to that, it's a little cumbersome. I mean, you got to be committed, I guess, to have the big softbox, but it's a game changer. But one on-camera flash, just one little flash, can go a long way. So this was a wedding at Treaty Oak. It rained hard. We did most of the wedding under the porch at the Hampton Inn nearby. But I got a chance when the rain stopped to get out there, so one flash with a Gary Fong diffuser. What's that? Yeah, it got wet. And, other thing I'd point out there, it's not perfect. I wish mom was peeking out a little better. We do have ones where mom's showing better. But I like the moment, right? Where they're having fun. The kid on the far side is just exhausted. Story there too. This was in the middle of COVID. So this was masked down for 10 seconds, get the photo, get out, right? But again, one flash can do it, and that Gary Fong works really good, for this sort of thing. If you've seen that, it looks kind of like a Tupperware that you put on your lens. There's other versions of it. So on-camera flash again, and these are, again, the progression here, these are getting a little more complicated, with the lighting, they're showing, but Pirates on the Beach, so that was like 6 o'clock, it wasn't dark yet. That's a fake sky. Right, and a lot of photoshopping to try to get that in place and do a reflection and so forth. But I wouldn't have really been able to get the picture without the flash, lighting up and getting the details of their face. So it's counterintuitive, but fill flash, even in daylight, will help you get those details, especially somebody's really backlit, which is what was going on here. And studio strobes, we talked about that a little bit, saving your shoot, right? So. That was Eric's 70th birthday. Wife said, "What do you want?" I want pictures of my family, right? So we went out there. Eric's a good friend of mine, and Debbie and the whole family. But he lives on a golf course, big golfer, loves his golf course. We all got out on the golf course. It starts to rain. We got nothing out there. So we went back inside. I brought a softbox and studio stuff, just in case, and had to rearrange furniture, and you get the shot, right? A couple of other observations there. In the corner, you kind of got a laundry basket up the stairs. Debbie was real worried about that. I'm like, it's not going to matter, and it doesn't matter, right? We just push it out of sight. That's another one where I got mom to sit right next to me, so Henry would look at me. Really looking at his mom. But I like that. I like the shoes here too, actually, for whatever reason. But that took you a little manipulating because they didn't all line up like that. I think Eric in particular was way back, so I wanted to get him on a level. But once we got it, we got it. And I think there, a little trick I learned somewhere is, ha 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 ha. Right, and people laugh, right, and you can catch them doing, do whatever your goofy laugh is, and they're like, what? All right, last one. So I'd say level up, right? So attend workshops and conferences. Some of this stuff I've shown is from conferences like this. I couldn't dream that up. I don't know if Nancy could dream that up for her, her events, but I had an opportunity to shoot that where I wouldn't otherwise. I say, show your work, enter these competitions. The competitions, they don't always pick the right thing, or it's not always as meaningful as it could be, but at least gives you some gauge and something to aspire to. And I think the more you do it, the more ribbons you do win, which is some measure, maybe you're improving. But participate in the club. A lot of these things I'm showing you were from either this club or the club, that I belong to in St. Augustine as well. I know we have a speaker coming up on Photoshop. When's that? November, okay. So, I said, get the right light, right? Create light if you can. If you can't get the right light. Number 3, I think biggest thing you could do for yourself is get better at post-processing. I went through some judging training for FC3, and I was surprised that the woman presenting it, the Grand Poobah, for lack of a better description, she said, nothing comes out of the camera without being post-processed, right? It needs it, right? That was her perspective, that it's not a reasonable thing to think you're going to take the picture and just get it right out of camera, right? Whether you spend 30 seconds on it or not, it's a different conversation. But here, a couple of things I want to point out here, going back to the lighting again, this was at the torch run. So I photographed that for the sheriff a couple of times too. But this guy ran the whole 5K, in his turnout gear. I point out there, you can kind of see right behind him, see how it's all kind of blown out, right? And then he's stepping into shadow. I didn't always notice this, but I've gotten to a point where I do notice stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, I need to wait for him to come into the right light, right? And I could see that that's going to be a better picture. So I didn't take the picture, when he's back where the yellow guy is, because look how bad the yellow guy looks, right? So he got there, and I thought, okay, I'm really excited. I got the picture, and then I realized, I could see his eyes through the face, the face shield, which I wouldn't have thought I would be able to get. So good picture, right? I'm real happy with it. But that's better, right? So what are we doing there, right? I just simply swapped out the background a little bit and thought, oh, it's a fireman. Maybe it should look like fire, right? I'm a genius. And y'all can agree with me. So, and then I tried to sharpen it up a little bit, go through, looking at it now, I see, okay, there's a couple of errors I made, but again, just, the difference of knowing how to do, Photoshop. I'm not an expert or anything, but, it makes a difference. I found, his name's on it, and I found the guy, and I did email that to him or to the firehouse. He didn't respond, so I don't know if I got it the right guy or not, but somebody told me, Haley is the name on it, so somebody, and it's Firehouse 4. So I didn't realize until somebody told me. All right, step out of your comfort zone, right? So this was another conference that I went to. I actually had this hanging up in the atrium, and it's kind of interesting for me because on the one hand, I've got a lot of really good feedback from this. People like this, On the other hand, it's really not the kind of thing I've ever done, right? And the woman in here, whose name escaped me for a second, but I sent her a copy of this, and so she's in body paint, and I was the only person to do a portrait, I don't know what that says about me, right? But so hanging out there, one of the patrons, I guess, felt that this was, too satanic or something, So I was like, isn't that interesting, right? But I had already typed this up as step out of your comfort zone, right? And say, just doing some things a little different, may create a different opportunity for you. This kind of a dad joke, right? So reflect, this is a reflector was used, so you can do, if you haven't seen one of these, it's kind of cumbersome. It's better if you have somebody to help you. But instead of a flash, the kind of thing that you put up in your windshield, to protect your dash, they make those as reflectors. And you can see how much it lights up her face in this instance. The light was coming in. Really lit her up, with that. But I'd say reflect on what works for you. Okay, and experiment, right? So that's from the last LED workshop, so you've got an opportunity to do that again. That came out of, that same conference I mentioned in Shutterfest. There was a guy, he takes the LED projector, puts an image onto a model, right? And I went through that. I was like, this is pretty cool. And so we did that as a workshop with our club and your club. It got a lot of really good images. Liz got an award-winning image out of it, and it wasn't that hard, but I will say walking up to it, I was a little worried, like, are we going to get anything, but just experiment. And, I think it turned out, pretty solid. That's it. So, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. That's very kind.
I prefer landscapes and stuff, but you can ask.
Oh, I do need to mention one thing with that. So I actually had an opportunity to teach a continuing education class for Flagler coming up for Flagler College. So if you know anybody that's looking for a beginning photography class, we're going to do four nights in October. It's on the Flagler Lifelong Learning. I think it's like $60, but there's that. And if it's okay, I'll put it on the Facebook page for the club.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of final things. He kept referring to things that he and Nancy have done in terms of workshops. And you've had 2 or 3 that the 2 of you collaborated with some other people related to portraiture. And I went to the 2 of them that he mentioned, I went to, and I learned an awful lot. So they will be coming up. So if this piques your interest, then there are probably a couple of workshops in the next 6 to 8 months that you can try to get some help putting this into action. Other thing is that we have a member who has come into possession of some old film camera equipment, and he needs assistance, and it's a Nikon, right, Andy? Yeah, a Nikon. So if there's someone tonight or on Zoom that has familiarity using working with Nikon and film, he's having some trouble with his equipment. So let me know and I'll get it to Andy so that you 2 of you can connect. And if nobody here on Zoom has that particular skill set, we'll put it out in the general membership. All right, so thank you all for tonight, and have a great evening, and I'll see a bunch of you over at the Fish Company in a few minutes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Michael. No, they come out and then they go over there. I don't know where, you can bring them out, yeah. Yes.